Looking to level up some or all of your jobs to level 90 before Dawn Trail, or maybe you just want to level some jobs to use right now. Whatever it is, I will present both the things you need to prepare before you start leveling to make the most of it, and go over a way to level combat jobs as efficiently as possible, regardless of what role they are. I will also list a few other alternative leveling methods near the end of the video. First off, if you're looking for a way to level up your main really fast, meaning you have yet to finish your main scenario quest, do that first. This quest line might not always be the best for XP, however, it is mandatory to complete it to access the higher level content anyway, so you have no reason to avoid it. It is also often your best XP source. Now with that out of the way, let's start by taking a look at the various XP bonus options we have access to. The easiest one is the Rested XP, which boosts the XP you gain from defeating enemies by an additional 50%. Take note that crafting and gathering items also get boosted from this, so you can quickly end up spending it all with a gatherer or crafter. You can see the accumulated Rested XP by the dark yellow part of your XP bar, or if it is actually covering the entire level, a bluish turquoise part. Rested XP is accumulated by being logged out in a sanctuary, which is denoted by this moon symbol next to your XP bar. This means any city and most towns in the game. This is also where you can use glamour plates, for example. As it only boosts XP gains from defeating enemies, it does not boost the XP from dailies and such, so it may be less impactful if you don't grind dungeons or anything else beyond the daily roulettes and the like. Next up is the Heat of Battle buff. This one can be provided by your free company in the form of Heat of Battle 1, 2 and 3 respectively, boosting XP gain by an additional 5, 10 and 15% gain from defeating enemies. The rank 3 version is a lot less convenient to collect than the other buffs, so it is a lot more common to only see rank 2. Alternatively, you can also get this buff from a Squadron battle manual, which you can get through Squadron missions. This manual is equivalent to the rank 3 Heat of Battle of 15% and does not stack with any of the ranks. After that, a much easier buff to maintain is the Well-Fed bonus. All edible food in Final Fantasy XIV that gives the Well-Fed bonus will always include an additional 3% XP bonus from defeating enemies and can be maintained with something as cheap as boiled eggs, 5 gil apiece. Simply make sure to keep this buff up all the time while leveling genuinely anything, as the buff also boosts crafters and gatherers in a similar way. Next, there are also a handful of equipment that give XP bonuses in certain level ranges. The Friendship Circlet, which is obtained through the Recruit a Friend campaign, grants an additional 20% more XP from defeating enemies while at or below level 25. The brand new ring, obtained by simply completing the Hall of the Novice with one roll, grants an additional 30% more XP from defeating enemies while at or below level 30. A notable detail about both of these items is that their bonuses should still apply when you get synced down to their respective level ranges, although based on the XP that they boost, you will probably not get very much out of it anyway. There's also the Bozja earring, which boosts XP from defeating enemies by an additional 10% up to and including level 80, and is obtained by appraising 1000 forgotten fragments in Bozja, which sounds a lot more daunting than it actually is. Note, however, that you need to be level 71 to equip it. It also grants its bonus when synced below level 80. And finally, we have the bonuses that you either already have and possibly know this, or you can't have at all. The first of these is the Road to 80, a multiplicative 100% bonus to all XP gains across the board. This means double XP from all roulettes and everything else for that matter. This should also double the value of the other bonuses I listed earlier. This buff is granted when you make a character on a preferred world and stays around until 90 days have passed, or if the world is still preferred by then, until it stops being preferred. The other difficult to access XP bonus is from pre-order bonus earrings. To give an example of the most recent one, the Menfina's earring gives an additional 30% more XP from defeating enemies up to and including level 80, which makes it a lot more significant that its bonus should activate when you get synced down to an appropriate level range. Depending on when you're watching this guide, it may be worth considering that there is a very high likelihood that the pre-order of Dawntrail will be accompanied by a similarly effective earring, although we don't know that yet as of the making of this guide. By the way, not sponsored. Somewhat similar to this, there is also the armory bonus, which is granted when leveling a job that is a lower level than your highest level job, and is an additional 100% more XP when below level 80 and 50% when at or above level 80. This bonus in particular applies to most things, a bit like the Road to 80 buff, however it does not apply to quest rewards specifically. As a last thing worth prepping before we start, be sure to pick up our Wondrous Tails book from Chloe Aliapo in Idleshire, unlocked through the Unctuous Adventurer near the Aetheryte. Filling this book and returning it awards 50% of a level, regardless of what level you are, to the job you're currently equipped with. You can pick up one book each week and you have up to 2 weeks to fill that particular book. I have more information on the Wondrous Tails if you are interested in this other video, link in the description. Now, with your stomach full and a good rest, your battle manual at the ready, your circlet, ring and earrings, if you have any, all in order, let's get to the leveling itself. The primary strategy that I will recommend will, probably unsurprisingly, make use of the daily roulettes. However, the magic happens in what we do between them, and which ones we do. As a tank or a healer, you will probably find very little downtime between dungeons, and that is alright. However, the downtime becomes far more impactful as a DPS. Among all the daily roulettes, the particular stinkers on the list are the level 50, 60, 70, 80 dungeons, as they give extremely abysmal amounts of XP compared to the time invested. Guild Hest is actually even worse than that, but because of the presence of the challenge log for completing 3 of them each week, they are worth doing just for that. Although doing 10 might not be worth the trouble. With that said, if you plan to do all the remaining roulettes in a day anyway, then the order is not particularly important. However, if you don't have the time to do all of them, I recommend doing them in the following order. Trials Roulette. It is usually quick and gives a decent amount of XP for the time. Then Leveling Roulette, as it is simply a good, reliable choice. Take note that the limited leveling roulette setting only works if you have a full 4-man pre-made and also only works on specifically leveling roulette. Next, main scenario roulette, although keep in mind that while the XP is great here, it can take a while, and it might not be the most entertaining thing in the world. After that comes Alliance Roulette, which tends to give about the same XP per time invested as main scenario, but your mileage may vary. Then comes Frontline, which is a PvP mode, so if you're not into that, you can simply skip it. I demonstrate how to unlock Frontline in this other video linked in the description. Frontline gives a pretty large chunk of XP for the daily, and comes with the added benefit that once you have entered the duty, you can switch job freely and the XP will still go to the job you queued as. So, if you don't like PvP as the job you want to level, you can always switch to a different one once inside. Finally comes normal raids, since while they take about as long as trials, the reward is smaller. Now, if you make it through the entire list of roulettes and still have more time and energy to level more in that day, instead queue for the highest level dungeon you can, but never end of expansion dungeons, meaning level 50, 60, 70 or 80 dungeons. This means that if you are level 60, you should queue for the Great Gubal Library at level 59, instead of something like the Anti-Tower at level 60. If you anticipate you will be forced to do it this way, I recommend saving some of the more potent duties like Main Scenario and Frontline to push you past that specific level as much as you can. The highest level leveling dungeon you can access will always be the dungeon that awards you the most experience from defeating enemies. Now, obviously, for some jobs, DPS primarily, simply doing roulettes and spamming dungeons isn't as effective due to queue times. To compensate for this, I have a list of other somewhat effective XP sources you can spend the time making use of between queues. These can also be helpful if you run out of roulettes or the queue is slow for some other reason. The first one is tribal quests. Each tribe has varying requirements to unlock, but it is typically a matter of doing a specific set of quests that lead up to them. I recommend googling the particular tribe you need, but I do have a general starter guide for the subject, link in the description. As you are limited to 12 tribe quests a day, you can help somewhere between 2 and 4 tribes per day depending on certain factors. It is worth noting that, for the XP alone, the A Realm Reborn tribes suck. so I don't recommend doing these for XP farming reasons. For all other expansions, the experience scales with your level but stops once you level past the expansion itself. Meaning, for example, that Heavensward tribes will stop scaling their XP reward once you go past level 60. They will still grant XP of course, but if you do a Heavensward tribe quest at level 80, you might not find the XP particularly impressive. Heavensward has 2 combat tribes in the Vanu and the Vath. Stormblood also has 2 in Kojin and Ananta. Shadowbringers and Endwalker respectively have only 1 in the form of the Pixies and the Arksadara. The most efficient way to make use of these quests is to use a level appropriate job for the quests, but if you are only leveling 1 job, start with the highest level ones you can do and make your way down. Level 50 and below jobs will have to skip this step, but I will get back to that niche situation a bit later. The second option is to do daily hunts, not to be confused with the randomly spawning hunt marks in the world. To unlock this, you need Second Lieutenant in your Grand Company, and then an NPC will grant you access. You also need this already unlocked to access the hunt in any expansion. It is also further important to note that you have to unlock these different hunts in order, so you have to go and unlock the Heavensward ones first, then the Stormblood ones, and so on. Once again, the A Realm Reborn hunts give nearly no, if any, experience at all, so these can be skipped. The elite marks also give nothing in this regard, so these can also be skipped if you are only interested in the XP. Now, the hunt in Heavensward is unlocked and accessed near the Forgotten Night Inn in Ishgard. The Stormblood hunt is unlocked and accessed near the Shiokase Hostelry in Kugane. The Shadowbringers hunt is accessed near the Temenos Rookery, however the quest to unlock it is found closer to the inn. The Endwalker hunts are unlocked through an NPC near the Aetheryte and is accessed at the Scholar's Harbor near the Leave quests. Simply grab every single mark build for a given expansion and get to work clearing each one. If you don't want to play around with discovering where each enemy is found yourself or planning kill routes, there are websites that can generate your path for you. I will leave one such website in the description. Once again, I recommend using a job in the appropriate level range for each expansion. However, unlike tribe quests, if you can defeat the last mob of a particular target with a job, you can get the XP for that job. Meaning that if you're capable of beating a mob 10 levels above you, you can do that. This can be more problematic for some jobs than others, as melee jobs may find it outright impossible to beat something that much stronger, where ranged jobs might find it surprisingly doable using kiting. If you're still at it after having done all your tribe quests and done all hunt marks you feel are relevant for you, my third suggestion for filler content between queues is to do fates. Simply make your way to a level appropriate zone and start doing fates. Do note that you have to be in the zone when a fate resolves to receive the reward, so if your queue pops, you may lose out on that, but there is very little you can do about that other than being slow to accept the queue, for example. This can be particularly handy as well if you haven't finished the Shared Fates feature, which allows you to buy certain items in Shadowbringers and Endwalker with bicolor gemstones awarded from Fates. And you need to do 60 Fates in each appropriate zone to max out these options, with even more options unlocking when you have cleared all in an expansion. To summarize the leveling strategy: 1. Activate all your XP boosting options you have. 2. Go through your Duty Roulettes, meaning Trial, Leveling, MSQ, Alliance, Frontline, Normal Raid, maybe 3 Guild Hests once a week for the challenge log. Then spam the highest leveling dungeon you have available. 3. To pass the time between queue pops, do your tribal quests, hunt marks, and then level appropriate fates. Note that doing 10 fates with a gold rating is also on the challenge log for some extra XP. Now, if you're leveling a job below level 50, you will be lacking many of these options. In that case, do your leveling roulette and frontline, maybe 3 guild tests, and then simply queue for the highest level dungeon you can. While doing so, do your actual hunting log for your job in question, if it has one, and if you run out of those, do level appropriate fates. Usually, doing the dungeons will level you up quite fast, so this shouldn't be a major problem. With that out of the way, I want to highlight a few alternative leveling options that are also somewhat popular. The first one is using your squadron. If you have an effectively set up squadron, you can spam level appropriate dungeons in rather quick succession regardless of what job you are, which can accumulate XP, maybe faster than doing it with players. But this depends on you as well. The important part is that the XP is a lot more consistent. As the squadron caps out at level 60, this is a leveling strategy that can work from level 15 to 60 or maybe 61. If you don't have an already set up squadron, simply using duty support can also be a decent way to level, although this will specifically be more about being low effort than high speed. The second strategy involves deep dungeons, however you may need a pre-made for this. Palace of the Dead is fine for level 1 to 60, Heaven on High is better for 61 to 80, and Eureka Authors is probably best for level 81 to 90. However, you may want to be able to start each of these from floor 51, 21 and 21 respectively, because most of the players that use this mode to level with will start there and finish after those 10 floors and reset back, as it turns out to be the most efficient. I suggest you might need a pre-made for this strategy, as sometimes the queues can be rather long. And if they are, then this method of leveling is simply not very effective. Finally, the third strategy involves Bozja. Simply running around and doing skirmishes and critical engagements will accumulate lots of XP for you, with it being more effective the more players that are in the area. This includes both Bozja and Zadnor. This area also gives you your level 80 toolkit specifically at all times, so you can get a bit of a preview. This strategy is very effective for leveling from 71 to 80 and is supposedly so good that even though the XP stops scaling after level 80, it is still competitive with things like roulettes after level 80. It can, however, get quite monotonous after a while. This is also true for the two prior options, of course. Now, at the start of this guide, I did say that I was listing some ways to level jobs, and you should make sure to use a strategy that you enjoy. Leveling needs to be fun, else you will lose interest. What I mean by that is that it is entirely pointless that Bozja might just be the most effective way to power level past 71 if you don't like it there. There's no point in doing frontline every day if you hate it, and there's no reason to do MSQ roulette if you find that boring. Prioritize ways to level that you find fun, even if they might not be the most effective. If you do that, you will be sure to get further in the end than if you bore yourself out of the game by forcing yourself to do something that you don't like. With that said, if you have some leveling tips and tricks of your own to share, I would love to hear about them in the comments. Now, that is all for this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you would like to support me and my channel more directly, you can become a member like these wonderful people here. You can also alternatively support me through Ko-Fi, link in the description. You can also support the channel by letting the YouTube algorithm know by liking the video, leaving a comment, subscribing, sharing, and hitting the bell to get notified when next I post a video. Fun fact, since Stormblood, each expansion pre-order has come with an XP boosting earring. The Stormblood one only worked up to level 50, the Shadowbringers one worked up to level 70, and the Endwalker one worked up to level 80. Presumably, the Dawn Trail pre-order bonus will include an earring that boosts XP by an additional 30% from defeating enemies that work up to level 90 and probably gives stat scaling with your level.